You guys asked and I listened. You guys wanted me to move up the kicker ranks to Tuesday so you can get these kickers off of waiver wires. And now we're doing kickers on Tuesdays and wide receivers and running backs on Wednesday. And of course, you understand the value of kickers right now, especially with all the injuries. This is making the difference in matchups this year. So we're getting into the top 12 Week 7 fantasy football kickers. And I'm one of the only fantasy YouTubers who covers kickers on a weekly basis. So please go down there and drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now, getting into our first tier of guys right here, I've got Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Detroit, sitting here pretty comfortably at number 1. Now, here's the good thing with Chase McLaughlin. He's already been really good from a kicker's perspective in fantasy football. The guy's hit some really long kicks this year. He set a Bucs record a couple weeks ago. But Chase McLaughlin is also a part of an offense that's obviously very good in general because he's basically got an MVP at quarterback right now. I think what we're about to see, though, is really good stuff for field goal kickers because what we're going to see here is Godwin miss another week. Bucky Irving missed another week. Egmeke Egbuka probably going to miss time, and maybe we get Mike Evans back or not. What's going to happen is Tampa is going to start kicking more field goals because they're going to get down there and get into range and then stall out because they're not having as much firepower without all those top weapons this week. And they're playing the Lions defense, which is a defense that is significantly hampered with injuries as well. So it's basically even Steven. Tampa's going to move the ball plenty this week, get Chase McLaughlin into plenty of good ranges to kick long field goals and have lots of opportunities this week. At number 2, I've got Eddie Pinheiro of the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Atlanta Falcons this week in San Fran. So Eddie Pinheiro's been great. Like, if you just look at the fantasy points per game with Eddie Pinheiro, he's number 1 kicker in fantasy this year. 12.8 fantasy points per game, and it's going to continue to be in the case because San Francisco continues to be plagued by injuries for years and years straight now. And you know how cursed this team is when Eddie Pinheiro hits a good field goal last week, and then he gets stepped on by one of his linemen. Now, I think it was just a stinger. I think he's going to play this week, and it's going to be good because they're playing the Falcons defense, which I do believe is beatable. I think Buffalo's in a bad spot right now. That's why they look bad against them. But I do think that Eddie Pinheiro in this 49ers offense will continue to move the ball and then stall out and give Eddie Pinheiro a lot of opportunities outside of the 20-yard line. So Eddie Pinheiro very much in tier 1 still. And Chris Boswell's at 3 versus the Cincinnati Bengals this week in Cincinnati. So I've said this a couple times. Thursday night games, you never know what to expect. And Mike Tomlin's record on Thursday nights, not a very good one. So I think the Steelers could possibly lose this game. But that being said, divisional matchups in fantasy football for kickers is a beautiful thing. Kickers end up kicking a lot because these teams, they know each other and they know their strengths. They know their weaknesses better than the rest of the league does. So I think Chris Boswell, coming off a really good week versus the Cleveland Browns, is going to be in a very similar position this week. And again, he missed a game because of the bye week. He's averaging 10 fantasy points still. Chris Boswell's been fantastic. He'll continue to do that once again on Thursday night against a divisional opponent. Now, dropping down to our next tier, Ryan Fitzgerald of the Carolina Panthers is at number 4 this week, and they're going to New York to take on the Jets. So with Ryan Fitzgerald, he's a part of an offense that obviously has been extremely hot and cold. And when I say hot, I don't mean Cincinnati Bengals hot. I don't mean Kansas City Chiefs hot. I mean, like, they're a middle-of-the-pack offense when they're hot because they can still get you in position to go score points just like they did against the Cowboys last week. And Ryan Fitzgerald, against an atrocious defense, the Cowboys had 14 fantasy points. Now he gets to take on the Jets, which is another atrocious defense to play. He's had 10 points, 14 points. Those were his past 2 weeks, and now he gets the Jets this week. It's another good defense this week for him to take on, and he's been very good. I mean, he's only missed 1 field goal this year, along with 1 extra point, so the accuracy is not the problem. The problem has been the offense, but the matchup is going to cure that issue this week. At number 5, I've got Michael Badgley of the Indianapolis Colts at the Los Angeles Chargers. Not a bad week. I mean, he had 8 fantasy points, so it's not like he was fantastic, but he made every single kick he attempted, and I think this week it's another matchup that I could see him taking advantage of. Because listen, the Indianapolis offense at this point is very good. Like, we all understand that their offense is running super efficient right now. Indianapolis is masking Daniel Jones' real deficiencies at quarterback, and they've got a fantastic run game and a great offensive line. Now they take on the Chargers this week, who is definitely injury deprived at the defensive position, so I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities again for Michael Badgley. The way the Colts are playing right now, the way the Chargers defense is playing, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities, and Michael Badgley will be a top 5 guy this week if he hits on all of his opportunities. Cam Dicker's at 6, and he's taking on the Colts in that same matchup. Now listen, Cam Dicker, I ranked him, I think for the first time this past week, inside the top 12, and he very much deserved it. But if you kind of look under the hood a little bit, Cam Dicker, outside of that one game, he actually hasn't been that good in fantasy football. Like, if you look at his game log this year, that was easily his best game by 5 points, and the only other time he's gotten 10-plus points was in Week 3 against the Denver Broncos. This week, I've got him nailed again. I think it's against the Colts defense that's actually pretty good, but the Chargers are so good offensively because of Justin Herbert. Now, they've got their own weapons issues as well. They've got deficiencies because of injuries, so they're going to continue to stall out, and he's been good with his opportunities this year. So there's no reason for me to believe that it doesn't continue this week against the Indianapolis Colts, who is a good defense, but the Chargers will give him plenty of opportunities to kick this week. I can tell you this for a fact as well. I'm pretty certain most of these kickers in this tier are on waivers right now. And the reason I moved this video up was because so you guys could take advantage of the waiver wire with the kickers and the defenses. So if you want to make sure you get the right kicker, make sure to use our automatic waiver wire tool to pick up the kicker that you want. Because always what happens is that these priority waiver claims, they're going to running backs, they're going to wide receivers, and as soon as those priority claims are up, everybody wakes themselves up at 3 in the morning to go grab the rest of the best free agents. Our process has automated that for you, so you can sleep through the night and still beat the guys who wake up at 3 a.m. to go get those players. It's already pissed off a lot of people this year in fantasy football because our system makes sure that you are absolutely going to get your targeted guy, and you do not want to end up looking like a guy like this at the end of the season.
This is Ted. Look at him. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast for the 3rd year in a row. Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season. Huh. Look at him.
Now, jumping down to our next tier right here, I've got Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks versus the Houston Texans at home. Now, I've said this on the defense ranking video today as well. This is a tough matchup. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks are going to really give it to the Houston Texans, but the Texans defense is very good. Like, do not forget that they're also coming off a bye week, which in theory should make them a very tough matchup. And Jason Myers, my only problem with him this year has been that the guy has missed a lot of kicks, and he's had accuracy issues throughout basically the duration of his career. He's missed 3 field goals this year. He's been perfect on extra points, but this offense is doing so well right now, at the very least, getting their kicker into position to make a bunch of field goals. I think it continues this week against the Houston Texans defense, which will absolutely give up yardage to the Seahawks because they're being too good offensively, but they also will make them stall out. So I see Jason Myers being a really good kicker this week inside the top 10 as well. Brandon Aubrey is at number 8. We all get it. He's the best kicker in the NFL in real life, but in fantasy football, he's been limited since CeeDee Lamb has been out. And the irony is it's not because they're not getting down there and they're not getting points. They're getting a lot of points, but they're going to the end zone more than they're stalling out this year. He has not had a 10-plus fantasy point performance since week 2. A bunch of 8, 8, 7, and 9 games these last 4 weeks. So Brandon Aubrey has not been the best in fantasy football as a kicker. And that's why you never should feel married to a kicker or a defense and always be willing to move off of them, because he's not the best right now. Of course, he's still very good. He's perfect on accuracy, basically. He makes a lot of long field goals, so he's always going to be in the top 10 or the top 12 at the very least. But this week against the Washington Commanders, I expect them to score basically the same way they've been doing, which is kicking 1 or 2 field goals in this game and kicking 3 or 4 extra points in this game as well. So the ceiling is capped, but he definitely still is a solid option. And at number 9, I've got Matt Gay of the Commanders taking on the Cowboys as well. Now, Matt Gay missed a big field goal last night for the Commanders. Had he not missed that field goal, they would have won the game. And Matt Gay's problem this year has been accuracy. He's missed 4 field goals this year. Now, he has it a 56-yard long. He did kick a long field goal last night as well. So we know the guy has leg. But inaccuracy issues, they really screw you in fantasy football. So he ends up getting 8 points, but he realistically should have had like 12. So Matt Gay, the opportunities are still there, and I do think they will be there against the Cowboys defense. But I also think there's a chance that the Commanders come out and put up 5 touchdowns and maybe kick 1 field goal. So I think there's opportunities here for sure against the Cowboys defense because that defense is bad. But I also at the same time don't look at this as the best matchup because I think the Cowboys are going to give up more end zone trips than stop the Commanders short. And then at number 10 to round out this bigger tier, I've got Kaimi Fairbairn of the Houston Texans at the Seattle Seahawks. I have said multiple times this week already, and it's very early in the week, this is going to be a tough matchup. It's a Monday night game. It's in Seattle. It's going to be a brutal matchup. But that doesn't mean the Texans won't get Kaimi Fairbairn into position to kick probably 3 field goals in this game. I could realistically see that. Kaimi Fairbairn is averaging 11 fantasy points per game. The Houston Texans offense has always been a good one for fantasy football, and he realistically is a guy that should be rostered right now and actually has a really tremendous ceiling. But this matchup, there's no getting around it. It's a tough one. And the last matchup that he played that was really tough like this was against the Jags in week 3, and he put up 4 points. So it's not my favorite matchup, but I do still think that Houston coming off a bye week and versus Seattle's defense, they're going to get stopped, but I think they'll get stopped close enough to give Kaimi Fairbairn plenty of opportunities. Dropping down to our last tier, Joshua Carty and Cam Little taking on each other in the overseas game of the week. This one, you need to make sure we're on the same page with several things. Number 1 is that you need to bump down wide receiver and running back options in these overseas games because all these offenses come out looking flat and out of sorts in overseas matchups because it makes sense. This is a different time zone. The field conditions are completely different. Everything is different, and all these teams are bad at adjusting to them. And it's okay because the defenses and the kickers, they should get a bump up. So to me this week, it's always hard to tell what happens in an overseas game, but I do think there's opportunities here for both kickers to kick a lot. I think Joshua Carty of the Los Angeles Rams, they're probably going to be without Puka this week, so they're going to stall out more than they probably would ordinarily. But the Rams offense is still good and not good enough for a kicker because their conversion rate at the red zone is higher than most teams, so I don't think Joshua Carty's ceiling is great. And I also think the same with Cam Little. Listen, Cam Little burned a lot of people this past week. He got 0 points as a fantasy kicker, and he had been really good up to that point, basically. So definitely was concerning to see Cam Little this past week miss both of his opportunities on extra points and field goals. Like, that's a really, really bad week for Cam Little. So Cam Little, I do think, is in this position to where most people won't play him this week. I think it's probably a mistake. I think he's a top 12 guy this week because the matchup versus the Rams defense, the Jags offense can get you down there and can give you opportunities, and I expect them to do the same thing this week. So let me know what you think of the kicker rankings in the comments below, and if you want to see the top 12 defense rankings for this week, click on this video right here.